Wonderful, amazing. Hey, everybody. Super happy to see you all here. So we have a few faces that I recognize, and some are my amazing clients, and there are new faces. I'm super happy to see both familiar faces and new faces. Wonderful. So welcome, everybody. I'm super happy. I also see that Nila is driving. Wonderful. So everybody is visiting from different places, obviously. And I'm so happy that we're all here. We will be talking about the 5 things that we have to stop saying if we want to get rich. Who is interested in learning about that? Hands up. Amazing. Wonderful. And it was so interesting. Like, I've been walking around today with this kind of nervous feeling in my belly. And I was like, what's going on? And for everybody who is my client, you already know that when we are having a feeling, what do? We analyze it. So I was like, okay, what is this coming from? And then I was just telling my amazing boyfriend, Jonas, I was like, I'm just going to go on this live call. Hey, Nina. I was like, I'm just going to go on this live call and I'm going to be talking about money and what we need to stop saying in order to actually get rich. And then I was like, oh, that's why I've been nervous the whole day, because it was a part of my mind was like, but Linda, who are you to talk about money? So like, I've done this massive transformation when it comes to money in my own life. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda, and I am the founder of the Facebook group that you're all in called Escape the Rat Race with a Purposeful Laptop Lifestyle. And in my paid program, where I have clients and some of the amazing ladies who are here are in that program, what I teach these women in that program is how to really use their empathic skills and use their highly sensitive nature, because this is who I am myself. I'm super empathic. I read people and I am super sensitive. So these are the women that I help to really understand how can you actually turn those things into gifts, help people with them, so you can become an online coach and transform people's lives from wherever you are in the world. So that is what I do. And when I educate my clients, I always talk about becoming a high-ticket coach, meaning that we are charging a good amount for our service because we are offering the world something magical. So, by the way, can we all hear me and can we all see me? Fantastic. Okay, awesome. I'm going to let somebody else in as well. Fantastic. Wonderful. So when I was diving into this earlier today, I was like, 5 things, and then I kept going. So I was like, okay, if I have to boil it down, I'm going to be okay with having 7, because there were 7 things that I realized like they were really important. And when I'm talking about, so I want to clarify, like when I'm talking about what rich people never say, I'm not talking about the people who win the lottery, and I'm not talking about people who inherited their money. No, I'm talking about the self-made people, the people who actually built something and got rich because they did something really great. So that is what I'm talking about. And this is the kind of transformation that I have done myself. I really needed to do a massive, big shift on my own journey in how I spoke about money, how I felt about money. So who can relate to the feeling that sometimes it feels a bit weird, like, oh, is it even okay to talk about money? Can you relate to that feeling? So many of us have had that, or we do have that, or we have had that. That is a bit of a taboo topic. And this was interesting when Jonas and I were in the US very recently. We went to an event and we met many other super successful online coaches. And it was so liberating in that group of people because everybody were talking about money. And I could go around asking people like, how much do you make? How much do you make? And it was just so nice because money was okay to talk about. And this is why we're having this topic today. Hey, Emma. This is why we're having this topic today. because I want it to be much more normal for each one of us to be open about money and to be okay with money. Because as long as we are feeling kind of guilt and shame around money, it's going to be extremely hard to make money. And it's going to be extremely hard to charge for our service, for our gifts, if we are having a lot of dense emotions attached to money. So I'm going to start with the number one. And the number one thing on this list is that people tend to say, no, the people who are not rich tend to say, money is not important. Money is not a drive for me. Money is not important. Who has ever heard anybody say that? Or maybe you've heard yourself say that. And when we are saying things like that, so this was somebody who I had a meeting with a few weeks back. And I asked her something like, how are you doing? Are you having many clients? Because she was a former client of mine, and she had become a coach, like almost every one of my clients who I transformed their lives, and then they wanted to become coaches. And this was before I trained my clients to actually become coaches themselves. So she had been on another path doing her coaching education. So I said to her, like, oh, amazing. How many do you have many clients? And she didn't answer how many clients she had. She just said, money is not a drive for me. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So when she said that money is not a drive for me, and when we kept talking a little bit more, I realized that when people are saying money is not important for me, it means that we have a big issue around money. And many times, well, let me just leave that there. Then we were watching a YouTube show the other day, Jonas and I. We always like to watch inspiring stuff on YouTube, and we watched, he was like one of Sweden's milliardaires. And it was a very famous Swedish YouTuber who interviewed him, and they talked about money. And he said, so I think this Swedish YouTuber said, like, does money make you happy? And he was like, well, the money in itself doesn't really make me happy in itself, but it for sure makes my life amazing. And I was like, yeah, exactly. This is the thing. So he was not saying money is not important, because like people who are rich, they know that money is a super important part of actually creating that lifestyle, that experience. Hey, Kim. So it's not the money in itself, like just having it in our hand, but to have the ability to pay for that experience. That is important. So when we want to get rich, when we want to improve our ability to make money, to save money, to invest money, to build wealth, we have to stop saying that immediately, that money is not important. Because our subconscious mind also works in that way, that if we say that something is not important, it's gonna do everything it can to prove that right. So we are gonna be shown all the time, no, money is not important, money is not important. And we're gonna keep repeating the same cycle of not being able to make money. So can we agree that we are gonna stop saying that money is not important? I love that. Thumbs up. Wonderful. The other thing is a combination. So number 2 would be to be very aware of all the other phrases that our mind has attached when it comes to money. So I was writing down, for example, money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. I can't keep money. You know, all of these different stuff that we tend to say around money. Who has ever heard that expression? Money doesn't grow on trees. A few of you, amazing, almost everybody. Who has ever heard, this was actually nothing that I had heard myself until I heard somebody on YouTube say this, that she was trained, that she said that money burns holes in my pockets. Has anybody heard that expression? I don't know if it is like a more an American thing. Okay, so a few of you. Yeah, so this belief that she had like money burns hole in my pockets. It was Lisa Nichols, I think, who said that. And this belief that money burns hole in my pocket, it was driving her to spend everything she made. Because obviously she doesn't want, her subconscious mind didn't want a hole in her pocket. So therefore she just got rid of all the money she made. As soon as she made it, it was gone. So she couldn't keep money because of that belief. So all these different beliefs that are attached in a negative way when it comes to money, we have to stop saying that if we want to get rich, if we want to get wealthy. So that is the second one, to become very aware of all these different beliefs that are coming up. For example, money doesn't grow on trees. As soon as we, like, when we say that, we're going to repeat that in our reality all the time. So can we agree that we're going to stop saying all of these different phrases that we were trained when we were kids to hear? Can we agree that we're going to stop saying those? Amazing. So I see a few nods and a few thumbs up. Amazing. So, and also this has to do with awareness. You can even Google after this, like, what are all the limiting beliefs around money? Because there are, I just came up with 3, but I know that there are like hundreds of different ones. So the more you are aware that they are actually different limiting money beliefs, then you can become more aware. Am I actually saying these things? So I would highly encourage you to just go online, go on Google after this, and just search for a list of all the limiting beliefs that people tend to say around money. And then we have number 3, which is, I can't afford it. Who has ever said, I can't afford it? Amazing. So I see thumbs up and I see nods. And I definitely used to say this, can't afford it, can't afford it. But the thing is, as soon as we're saying, I can't afford it, we are closing the door. There are like, it's a decision, it's a made decision. I can't afford it. Okay. Then the opportunity is gone. What we want to do here, rich people, they don't say I can't afford it. And it's not because they now are rich. They became rich because they changed their way of thinking. So it's easy to think now, oh yeah, but they are rich, so of course they can afford everything. But they actually had a journey to become rich in the first place. So I can't afford it one is such a huge one. And some of you have heard the story when I really saw this in my own life. So I was married to a former professional ice hockey player, and we were moving around. So I was like a hockey wife. So I didn't make my own money. And almost everything that came up, like, oh, this is an opportunity, or you could travel there. I'm like, can't afford it, can't afford it. Wanted to buy new shoes, can't afford it. Wanted to buy a new jacket, can't afford it. Couldn't afford anything. But then I remember, like, when I got the opportunity to go to London and train to become a hypnotherapist, and it was 90,000 SEK, and I didn't have any money. But I remembered a phrase that I had read in a book. I think it was in the book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you have not read that book, amazing book. I can highly recommend it. Easy read. And I remember that I heard him say that as soon as you tell yourself, I can't afford it, you're closing everything down. So if you want to start to train yourself to behave differently, start to say, how can I afford this? How? Swap the word can't to how. Because when we are starting to use how, we are opening up for millions of opportunities. Our subconscious mind goes like, wow, where can I look for opportunities? What solutions are there? And thanks to that, I had heard that phrase or read that phrase in a book. I used that phrase when it was something that I really wanted to invest in. So, and the interesting thing was that I knew in my heart, I was like, okay, I really want to do this. I need to do this for my growth. I knew that this was my pathway forward in life because I was so stuck. And I said that, how can I afford this? I know I'm going to do it. So it's just a question of how. And this was the first time in my whole life I swapped from I can't afford it to how can I afford it. And the beautiful thing was that I started to see opportunities where I had no idea that there actually were opportunities. Things really started to manifest so that people could come in to my reality. So I think I can't really remember. So if I told you another number before or time frame before, I'm sorry. But I think it was about like maximum a month. I think maybe 3 weeks it was to manifest at 90,000 SEK. And I did it. And that was the power when we start to stop saying I can't afford it. Would I have said I can't afford it in that moment? My life would have looked completely different today. I have gone from that. I think that this was why I felt nervous before, because I was like, am I really going to talk so much about money today? So I'm actually going to tell what I went from to where I am today. And I went from being able to make nothing, and it was like I back then, also before I started all the subconscious work and became a therapist and a coach, I was in network marketing and I was losing money every month. That's where I came from. And now I am in a place where I'm making like now it is normal for my head and in my world to make 150,000, like 150 hundreds. What is it? I'm 150,000. Yeah, exactly, per month, Swedish sake. So that has become, I'm always translating when we're talking to our coaches in the US, so I'm getting confused, but that has become normal for my head now. And I really had so much struggle with money before in making money, and to go from that place to making this amount of money today, it is magical. But it started with me swapping that phrase, can't afford it, to how can I afford it? So can we agree that when we feel that we really want to do something, we're going to swap I can't afford it to how can I afford it? When it is something that we really want to do, when we feel that this is the right decision for me. All right? Amazing. Wonderful. So let's go on. Yeah, so number 4 would be I can't versus I choose not to. So another option would be where there actually is a situation where we feel like maybe we don't right now have the money to do that thing that we would like to do, or it's something that we are like, I could afford it, but I feel like if I'm taking that money right now to do that thing, it's going to be consequences. Do you see the situation I'm talking about, where we're actually like, so instead here we can also swap how we're saying things. So instead of saying I can't do that thing right now, we swap it and we start to say I choose to not do that right now, because those two are completely different. I'm choosing to not do that thing right now because I'm choosing to save my money, or I'm choosing to build up my money, or I'm choosing to save it so that I can buy that thing later on. So the rich people with the rich abundant mindset, they're not talking about I can't do it. I'm choosing not to do that because this is a conscious choice. Does that make sense? Amazing. And then number 5. So we do have 7 things, even though we said from the beginning it was going to be 5, or the title said 5, but we went to 7. So number 5 is, I just wrote down the word yes. Rich people say yes sometimes, but they are very good at saying no. And this is something that I have heard so many successful people talk about, the importance of knowing when to say no. So this is why I wrote down, rich people don't say yes, because unsuccessful people tend to say yes to everything because of the belief that I have to be there for everybody all the time. So if somebody's having a party, they're inviting us, yes, I'm gonna come. I've had several clients the last week update me when I've asked about their progress in the program, in my Master Manifestor program, and they have told me that, Linda, I've gotten so much better at saying no to things. I've got so much better at feeling myself. Do I want to do this thing, or does it feel like I have to say yes because of obligation? And this is incredible, because when we start to tune in, is this something that I actually want to attend to? Do I want to go to that dinner party, or do I not want to do it? So when we can stop saying yes to everything, we are keeping ourselves much more in alignment with our goals. Does that make sense? Amazing. Wonderful. And also one more thing around that is that I didn't even put that on the list because it's not really something that rich people say or don't say, but it is this thing, as we're talking about saying yes to everything or no to stuff, is that I guess that you have heard or read some books that are telling you that you become the average of the 5 people that you hang around with. And that is so true, because we are tribal instincts. As humans, this is why we are so afraid of what other people will think about us. So we try to fit in on a subconscious level, on an unconscious level, we try to fit in with the people that we have around us all the time. And many times, like our subconscious mind is trained to not stand out. So if we are hanging out only with people who have a super low income, and they are saying all this stuff like money is not important and everything like that, we are becoming like that as well. So there is a super important part of hanging around people who have the results that we want to have. And I remember one live call I did with my clients, and I said that if you don't know people who are more successful than yourself, hang around them on YouTube. You can find them somewhere. It doesn't have to be that you are finding them in your physical reality right now, but you can find rich people to hang out with on YouTube or on TV or in books. We can really choose, and this is coming back to the topic of learning to not say yes to everything. Do not say yes to hang around with the people who are not helping you to move forward towards your goals. Does that make sense? Amazing. Wonderful. And then on number 6, I used to be super good at this one, like in a bad way. I've changed that now. So I'm looking for the cheapest. I was an expert in looking for the cheapest in everything. And I see some smiles. Rich people never say I'm looking for the cheapest. Do you know what rich people say? I'm looking for the best. I'm looking for what will serve me on the way to what I want. I could spend, like, if I was going to buy something, like this is the old version of me. If I was going to buy something, I could spend hours online trying to compare the cheapest price. It was really my mindset. Cheapest. And the reason why I was looking for the cheapest was because I felt that I couldn't afford it. So it's so many things are working together. When we are having that feeling like it's tight with money, then we are oftentimes spending so much time in looking for the cheapest. So rich people don't say that. Rich people say like, I'm looking for the best. So an example of this would be, before I used to buy, like when I started to earn a little bit more money, I started to buy a lot of stuff. I could buy like 10 different handbags. But it was like not good quality handbags. It was just like, I just wanted to buy a lot of cheap stuff. And then I went over to really see like, what do I really want? When I asked myself that, so when I stopped asking myself what is the cheapest, and I asked myself like, what do I really want? What is the best for me? What is most in alignment with my rich life? And that's when I bought my first Louis Vuitton bag. That was a bag that I had been wanting for 15 years, but I had so low self-esteem regarding my worth, regarding my money stuff and everything. So I felt that I didn't even belong to the Louis Vuitton store. Can anybody relate to that feeling that you have gone into a store? I see some nods. Thank you for sharing that. The first time, like, I remember my mom and we went into that shop. I guess I was around 15 when I started to like, I really want to have the kind of designer bags. So maybe when I was about 18, my mom and I went into the Louis Vuitton store, and I just remember I felt like in super much of an outsider. And also back in that time, I really tried to, what people were saying, like dress for success. So I tried to look like super grown up when I was 18, and I was always wearing like suits and stuff just to look professional, because I felt so small and unimportant on my inside. So I tried to be something on my outside. But I remember, like, as we walked into that shop, I remember like, oh, they're looking at us very unnicely. And I just felt so uncomfortable in that shop. So that was when I was 18. And when I started my coaching business and I started to really dive deep into my subconscious mind regarding all the money beliefs that I had and my worth and everything. And I had some really good months. Then I was like, this was when I was about like 32. And I was like, I would really like now to buy my first Louis Vuitton bag. So, but I was so afraid of that shop, because I remember how I felt when I was 18. So that feeling was still stuck with me. So Jonas, my boyfriend, he was like, let's go for a walk. And so he had planned that we were going to go to the Louis Vuitton store just to get me to become more comfortable. So it was like he was taking me there without me knowing it, so that I could just become familiar with the shop. You see, this was a process. So I didn't buy anything that first time when we went in. And then, but that got me into the door, and the people were actually nice to me. I think it was because I saw things differently. I all of a sudden knew that I actually have the money to buy a bag from here. So have anybody ever experienced that? When you feel different, when you feel super happy, you tend to get a super warm smile back. And when you are grumpy, you tend to get not so nice people, right? So I guess that this is what happened the first time we went in there. Now I knew, I was like, I actually can buy something here, and I do belong here. But I didn't buy anything at that time. And it took me another 3 visits until I actually felt ready and brave enough to buy that first bag. But oh my God, that bag, we're still talking about this thing about stop buying the cheapest or look for the cheapest. Go for what is best for you. That bag has made me much money after that. Not the bag in itself, but what it made with me. When I bought that first bag, I still have that bag in the other room. and I'm taking so well care of it. It has its own spot. And now I even have 2 Louis Vuitton bags. Both, they have their own spots, and I'm taking care of them, and I appreciate them so much. Not because they're handbags, but because the symbols. They are the symbol for me that this is something I believed I wasn't worthy of, that I couldn't do, I couldn't afford, all the stuff that we have gone through, couldn't afford. I should only buy the cheapest stuff. Another thing that came up for me when I was going to buy the first one was that, what will my mom think of me? She will be angry. Like, she will think that I'm crazy, that I'm spending. Like, I felt that it was super much money. So it's like, if I spend this much money on a handbag, she will think that I'm crazy. Like, maybe she will never talk to me again. Like, all these fears came up that I had to work through. But they have made me a lot of money in the way that, thanks to everything I learned from being able to make those purchases of the things that I really wanted, that was the best for me. It upgraded myself so much, and I was able to start to talk about those things, and that attracted amazing women into my life that wanted to learn the same things, who became my clients, and that expanded my business. So the bags have, like, for me, just shifting, going, because when I was buying the cheapest of everything, that didn't increase my value at all. When we are looking for the cheapest, every time we make a purchase because it is the cheapest, we are lowering our value. Not because of what other people look at us, not because of that, but because of the decisions we make for ourselves. Does that make sense? Are you following along with us? So we are really showing ourselves. And I even remember my first teacher, Marissa Peer, she also had an example of this. So she told me on that training that when she was a student, she had a friend who came from a more wealthy family than herself, and I believe that she didn't have so much money herself, my teacher, Marissa. So her and her friend, they went into a food shop, a grocery store, and they were both looking at buying tuna, like a can of tuna. And Marissa found herself looking at the cheapest, and her friend were looking at a much more expensive one. And Marissa asked her, she was like, why are you looking at the expensive one? You can buy, like, this is so much more affordable. And her friend said, well, I want the best. Like, of course, I want the best. So for her, because she came from wealth, for her, it was normal to look for the best. She came from a rich family. And for Marissa, it was normal to look for the cheapest. So Marissa told me at a training, she was like, that was the decision. Like, that was the time I made a decision to go for the best. And just by swapping, I'm looking for the cheapest, till I'm looking for what is best for me, that makes a massive difference. Maybe it takes a bit longer time to buy that, the best. And maybe it is a process as well. Maybe, I don't know what example I could take. Let's say that a Lamborghini, I don't know what the Lamborghini cost, but let's say we really want a Lamborghini and we know that that is the best for me. But right now, we don't really have that money right now to buy that. But what we can do at that time is to use what I said before, is that I'm choosing, so we're not going for, I can't afford it, because we have erased that out of our way of speaking. So instead, we're saying, I'm choosing to buy another car for now while I'm saving up for the best. Does that make sense? So that's just a way of how we can build this up. Because I'm not suggesting, because also rich people, they don't just go out and buy stuff that they don't have the funds for right now. So we can use all of these different ways of speaking, as I've just walked you through, when we are building up to buying that handbag or that Lamborghini or whatever it is that we want to buy. And I have another example of that. I have a coach that I want to work with. She charged 1 million Swedish SEK for her coaching program for 1 year with her. And it's something that I am going to do, her program. And right now, I don't really have that money exactly right now, but I know I will do it. So, because that's That's something that I know is going to be really, really good and helpful for me. So right now, I'm choosing to not do it exactly right now, but I'm also choosing to invest and to grow my business so that I can have that fund and do that training, because it's something that I really want to do. So here is an example of how I am building this up right now. Make sense? Amazing. Okay. And then we have number 7. I'm going to try versus I'm going to do what it takes. How many of you, so Nina says yes. How many of you have ever felt yourself or heard yourself saying, oh, I'm going to try? Yes. Yeah. And what happened? Did it go well or not so well? It didn't go so well. No. Thank you for sharing that. And this was something that Jonas, I've never really watched Yoda, but he said that Yoda has this quote, like now I've seen the quote. So Yoda, he has a quote saying that there is no try. You either do it or you don't do it. Something like that. Don't quote me on that. Google it yourself. But it's something like that. There is no try, basically. And this is the thing. I was listening to every morning. Jonas and I are in the gym every morning, Monday to Friday. And many of you have got voice messages from me when I am in the gym in the morning. So between my sets, I'm making voice messages to all the amazing people. And I was listening to a motivational speech like I do almost every morning, and I'm getting super much input from super successful people. And this guy that I was listening to this morning, he was talking about this obsession. He was like, the super successful people who are self-made, super successful, they didn't end up there because they were trying anything. They were obsessed. And he was talking specifically about Kobe Bryant. I don't know exactly. He's a basketball player. I've heard talks from him. But he is super, super successful, or was, I guess, super successful basketball player. And so this guy that I was listening to was like, Kobe Bryant didn't end up as this like world famous, super successful basketball player because he wanted or he was interested in basket. No, he was obsessed. And I was like, oh, that's a relief, because I find myself being super obsessed. I am super obsessed. I have really learned to stop saying yes to so many other things. And I'm saying no to so many things. Everything that is not in alignment with my huge vision for what I have for my business, because I know that my business and what I'm building, this is my soul's calling. And this is me showing up in the world, making a massive freaking impact on the women's lives around the world. This is my mission. This is an obsession. This is not something that I want or I'm interested in. No, I'm obsessed. I'm waking up 5 a.m, and we're going to the gym to really work out our physical bodies. Then we are working on our business. Both Jonas and I working on our businesses, because we both have a massive vision for how we are transforming people's lives around the world. We are both obsessed. Like, if people would look at us, or when people look at us from the outside, they're probably saying that we are a bit crazy, but we are obsessed. And this is the thing. When we are just interested in something, when we are just trying something, like we saw here, for all of you watching this on replay, you can't see all the beautiful, amazing, lovely ladies here, but a few women here were nodding their heads when I asked whoever said you want to try something and how did that work out, and you all said like it didn't work out so well. And that's the thing. When we are trying something, it is not working out for most part. Like, try to lift your arm, you're like, I could try, but if I'm just saying you lift your arm, you're doing it. Completely different things. When we want something, if we want to get rich, if we are serious, if we have this desire in our heart, who feels, honestly, if you would tune into your heart, who feel that you are meant to be rich? Who feels that? So can we agree that we are going to stop saying, I'm going to try to be rich. Because as long as we're going to try to be rich, it's not going to happen. 2 years from now, the people who say, I'm trying to get rich, 2 years from now, they're going to be in the same place or worse than they are right now. We are learning. When we can dedicate ourselves to do whatever it takes. I was listening to another motivational speech that helped me a lot. Maybe it was around 1.5, 2 years ago. It helped me a lot because I was at a point at that time in my business where I felt like I was kind of out of alignment and I didn't really bring in the right kind of people. And I didn't, when something is feeling a bit off, but I couldn't really tell what was off. I just knew something was off and I was a bit frustrated. And I was like, how many years shall I struggle? That was kind of what was going on. But I still knew, like, I was still getting up. I was still doing my thing. I was like, I'm not trying, I'm doing, like, I'm obsessed. But a speech that really helped me at that time was a guy who said, whoever told you that success would take 6 months to build? Whoever told you that success would take 2 years to build? He was like, sometimes success takes 10 years before you have that 1 month where everything just changes. The point with that speech, the kind of point that he was making was that we don't know when that time is going to come for us. This is why we cannot go in with the mindset of trying. Like if we were going in and we're like, I'm going to try to be rich, I'm going to try to build a company, I'm going to try. No, we are not going to last. We're not going to last 6 months in that. But when we make that decision, like I did when I was 3 years old, actually, and then I made the decision all over again. But when I was 3 and I started daycare, I hated daycare so much. I felt I was in the complete wrong place. I didn't fit in. I felt like an outsider. I didn't know how to communicate with other people. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to be with my family. And this is where this drive for freedom started for me. I was like, when I'm a grown up, my kids are never going to go to daycare. I'm not going to put my kids into this misery. On Sundays, I had a lump in my belly of worry because I knew on Monday I'm going to go back to daycare. And I was crying almost every morning in the car on the way to daycare. And that really brought me to where I am today, where Jonas and I are planning for what is it exactly. Like on Saturday, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a planning, a strategy session together. And we're going to sit down and really look at like, what exactly is it that we want to have in place in our businesses and companies before we're becoming parents? Because for me, since I was 3 years old, I always knew that I'm going to have money and time when I become a mom, so that I can be there and enjoy my pregnancy, and I can be there and enjoy the time together with my kids. I don't want to be separated from them all day long. So since I was 3, it's been my drive to create a successful life for me. And it was never about trying. And I see that this is the difference for the people who are becoming successful and rich. They never tried. They made that decision. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to learn. The awesome thing is, I heard Jonas say this the other day to somebody on a call that he was going to help in his business. So he was talking to a lady who said, like, I'm not a technical person. And then I heard Jonas say, like, well, I didn't used to be a technical person either. And he shared a story where his brother used to be the technical person in their family. I had not heard this story before. So I always seen, since Jonas and I met, I was like, Jonas is super technical. Like, he knows everything about the computers and what to do, like websites, funnels, and everything. So I've seen him really as a super technical person. But then I heard his story where he was like, I didn't used to be a technical person. My brother was a technical person until the day there where I realized that it was a skill and I could learn that skill. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I thought that he was just popping out in this world as a baby, knowing how to be technical, but that wasn't the case. And that's the same thing with money. We can learn. This is a skill. Like I've also got, like we had a day yesterday where we were in our co-working space. Now we're in our home, but we were in our co-working space with all our friends. It's an amazing place. We have so many friends there, also coaches and really building their businesses. Incredible. So we were there, and then I was going to jump into a call with our amazing clients. And then I was like, I don't want to disturb you. Like normally I would say like, oh, I'm just going to go into my call now. But I was like, I'm not going to disturb him. And as I was thinking, I'm not going to disturb him because he was into something. Then I realized, I was like, shit, not long ago, like maybe 6 months ago or yeah. And before that, I used to ask Jonas for stuff all the time. I was like, can you help me with this? I'm building this stuff on my website, or I'm doing this thing. Can you please help me? Can you please help me? And then I did a hypnosis on my subconscious mind where I took out all the beliefs that I wasn't a technical person. I was just removing those and I was replacing them with the understanding that I am a technical person, that everything I learn, it just goes straight into my subconscious and I become a pro in technical stuff. And you know what happened? I realized yesterday that in about 6 months, it's been only a super few moments where I ever had to ask Jonas for technical advice because I know how to do stuff. It's learnable. We can learn stuff. And this is incredible. So I wanted to share that story to give you hope. I've learned how to make money. I've learned how to become technical. Like we can learn this. And I really want everybody here on the call today and everybody watching this later on to just bring that with you. It is a learnable skill. I was definitely not born as a baby knowing how to make the amount of money that I make today. Definitely not. It was a journey. And I'm just going up from here. This is just my start. And I know that this is the same thing for all of you. The ones of you who chose or to make that decision today, I'm choosing to learn this stuff. You have the most incredible future ahead of you. How does that feel? Amazing? Wonderful. Because especially for us women, I of course men as well, but I see that in my experience, it's been even worse for women, that many of us believe that we can't make money. We don't know enough, or who am I to charge for my service? And all of this, it is incredible to see this inside my program now. So as I said in the beginning, I have a program called Master Manifestor. And in the beginning of that program, what we're doing is that we are finding what our soul came to planet Earth to do. And we are accessing the gifts that our soul, like the healing abilities that we all have with us from our soul. So we're accessing all of that, and we are healing old wounds that are being keeping us away from actually showing up in this world with our gifts. And then my clients are learning, like, how do we actually start to help other people with our gifts? And how do we make sure that our clients are having transformative results? Like, how do we make sure that we're really transforming their lives? So now my clients who are walking this program, I've seen them coming into the world as babies, like grown-up babies, but they're coming in as babies in the program. And now they're taking on clients, and now they're starting to charge for their service. And it is incredible to really see that. It is so powerful. So I know, like, there is a process, and we can follow that process. We can upgrade ourselves to become a match for that money that we want to bring in. And it's not even about, like, some people would say, oh, you just got to sit down, meditate, and manifest it. It doesn't really work like that. Yes, it is a part of alignment, but it's so much more than that. We need to understand, like, how to talk differently to our subconscious mind. Like, I gave you 7 amazing tips today, and I would love to hear how this is working out for you. So who will commit to start with, to stop, to say at least 3 of these things from now on? So Sophie, amazing. Anna, Sophia, wonderful. Anki, amazing. Nila as well. Fantastic. Fantastic. Amazing. I'm super happy. So please update me on how this is working out for you. And One more thing that I want to add. By default, you will probably hear yourself saying these things because your subconscious mind is so used to saying them. So you're going to hear yourself. And when you catch yourself, be kind. This is also something that, a free tip that I'm teaching inside the program, but I'm going to give it away for free. When you hear yourself, when you catch yourself saying something that you're trying to get rid of, or that you are dedicating yourself to get rid of, not trying, but that you are dedicating yourself to get rid of, be kind to yourself. So instead of saying, oh, you're stupid, idiot, now you did that again, you're saying like, so lovely, amazing that I just realized that I said that again because now I can change it. Does that make sense? That we are communicating nicely with our subconscious mind. This is how we change, and we do it in a lovely way that will make a massive difference for the rest of our lives. Amazing. Wonderful. Super ladies, I'm so happy that you are here together with me today. If anybody is curious about learning more how the Master Manifestor program could help you transform, if you're stuck right now in a job and you're like, I really want to use my abilities, my skills, my intuition, my empathic gifts, and you want to become an online coach transforming people's lives and make freaking good money from doing so, feel free to reach out to me in a private message, and I am super happy to share more about the program with you. With that said, sending you so much love, wishing you a beautiful rest of your day. Bye. Bye.